Hello everybody. Good morning. Good morning everyone. Please confirm in chat if you can hear me and see me. Okay. Is my audio clear? Okay. Fantastic. What a wonderful morning, Tuesday morning we have. And today we are coming live from Bengaluru with a special task in mind. Good morning to everybody. So today, as I come live to you, I have only one thing in my mind. How can we add more value to your lives? And that is the reason we invited one of the most experienced bioscientists, biotechnologists from Karnataka to address you on a very important topic. Now, you see, biosciences is a diverse field. Am I right? It's a wonderful field. But there are many subfields which needs our attention. And today, our focus of attention is genetics. You know, a few months ago or a few years ago, Government of India came up with a law, Right to Information Act. But personally, I believe right to knowledge is very, very important. Not just information. There's a difference between information and knowledge. So, if I have to say right to knowledge, every common man today, while we are in amid of this coronavirus pandemic, knows a lot of terms, but he or she is not aware of some genetic terms, which is very, very important. So today we wanted to bring the attention of all my friends, all my colleagues, all of you at Biotecnika. I just wanted to let you know that this is very, very important to talk about the genetical aspects of human species and how it is impacting all of us. So the right to knowledge which I was talking about, right to knowledge should not be the luxury of a few. It must reach everybody. And that is the reason today I come to you live to talk about a very important aspect, genetics masterclass. Welcome everybody to this genetics masterclass, and with me is Dr. Jagdish Mittur, and I'll be passing on the controls to him shortly. But before I do that, I have a small presentation to make. I wanted to share some thoughts of my own on this burning topic. Now, does genes matter, or genes is the theme of today's talk, okay? Now, today's talk, why we chose careers and marriages, because all the youngsters out there, all of you, right? First you want to settle down in your career, and then you want to settle down in your life. Am I right? And that is the reason. That is the sole reason why we have come up with this talk. Genetics of marriage and how it impacts your career, your life, your parents' life, your grandparents' life, your children's life. Okay? Very important, children's life. And that is the reason we came up with this talk today, careers and marriages. Now today we are going to discuss the mathematics of rare diseases. Okay? Rare diseases, if you just go and Google it out, you will find thousands and thousands of such diseases, right? And we have, a common man has very low awareness about it. Leave that aside. Many biosciences students have a very low awareness about it. So we thought, okay, let's get started from all of you, while all of you can again go back and educate all others around you, so that we start talking. To solve any problem in this world, the first thing is to start talking. So let's start talking about rare diseases. Let's talk about the Indian social concept and the dynamics of Indian society and how it is impacting our next generation. Now, how actually marriages happen? So we just, we like some girl or we like a boy, and okay, or our parents like them because of different reasons, and then the marriage happens. But do we even consider the genetics perspective of it? That is going to be talked about today. Okay. So today's speaker, as you can see, a very special person, a very good friend of mine. I know him for past 15 years now. He has worked at Karnataka Innovation and Technological Society as a principal consultant. Very recently, he retired from there, and he has vast experience across the globe. And he has been involved in several corporate, social, as well as individual social responsibilities. I'm very proud to be associated with Dr. Jagdish Mittur today, who is going to talk on this burning topic, which nobody is talking. Nobody is realizing that this is the need of the hour. But before I pass on the controls to him, I have a special request to all of you. Okay. Now, I want each one of you to please share this link with all your friends, colleagues, and everyone. Okay. So that they can also enjoy this session. They also get aware about the rare diseases which can happen if we do not match the genetic kundali of the bride and a groom. Okay. And we have this request to all of you. I want to give you 30 seconds. Please go and share on WhatsApp, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, whichever social media you prefer. Please tag us, #Biotecnika and @Biotecnika. Please tell the world that we are talking on a very important aspects of Indian society at large, and we want everybody's attention. We want everybody to come on the same page and talk on this, because our next generation is at stake today. If we do not talk about the genetic paradigm of marriage, if we do not talk about the genetic dimension of the marriage, then our children can be victims of these rare diseases. I'll tell you a story. I know a person, very close person of mine. So she got married, and unfortunately, now her children cannot see clearly in bright light. They cannot open their eyes properly because of a rare genetic disease. I would not name anybody, any disease, but you know what I'm talking, right? So this is very, very important aspect, guys. Today, if you guys do not share this link with your friends, family, colleagues, father, mother, brother, whoever, no matter he or she is from the non-bio background also, this is going to help them. Okay. So have you shared? Yes? Okay. Fantastic. So now that you have shared, do not forget to tag us @Biotecnika and #Biotecnika. I would like to pass on the controls to Dr. Jagdish Mittur. Sir, the dice is yours.
Namaste. Good morning to all of you. Thank you so much, Mr. Shekhar Suman, Ms. Divyashri, and Team Biotecnika. You know something, I've been looking forward to reach out to students of life sciences and others in general to discuss this particular topic. This topic, careers and marriages, with the tagline, "The class of genes, not genes," is a very, very dear topic to me, to my heart. Well, while my talk may appear a bit lighthearted, you've sort of set the stage, Shaker, for me to build on it saying that while the talk may be a little bit lighthearted, I have some serious messages, and a couple of them you've already given, and I will be further strengthening those messages so that when anybody walks out of this webinar, they will have something to think about and something to share with their near and dear ones, including the ones they may come across in the society. If there are two topics I feel which are of most importance and relevance to all humans from time immemorial, from the time a man walked on the earth to today or tomorrow or years from now, those would be centered around careers and marriages. While one is very professionally oriented, careers as we think so, the other one, marriages, which is very personally oriented. So how do we blend these two in a way that will bring you peace, excitement, thrill of life that many, many people have experienced in the past, present, and hopefully in the future? Right now, I feel almost all student listeners are at an exciting time of their lives, what I call as the interface, an interface or a transition from what they think as a professional career to maybe a personal career, which is a marriage and having a family. Yes or no, right? I want them to answer yes or no if they are at an interface where they're thinking about both careers and maybe some of them will be thinking about marriages going forward. So that's the interface that I would like to sort of dwell upon and see what is that we need to learn a little bit more and what is that we need to share with other members of the society. Well, before we go on to my actual presentation, I have a question for you, to all the students and perhaps others too who may be listening. And by the way, I think some of my ex-colleagues, including some of my mentors, may have tuned in as well because they were also interested in listening to a topic like this, which many, many people feel that this is these two are extremely important topics, which they themselves would have faced while they're growing up. And I'm sure their children, maybe grandchildren, are facing as I speak now. So I have a question for you all, to all the listeners. How many of you are actually wearing jeans? I'll repeat the question. How many of you are actually wearing jeans? There may be toned jeans or untoned jeans. Like on the slide, you see what's in fashion, which are toned jeans. And not everybody wears that. They could be wearing normal looking jeans too, but what's trending is the toned jeans. So how many of you are actually wearing the toned jeans? So if the answer is no, as I can see in the chat box, many of them are wearing yes, and some of them are saying no. Well, all of you are wrong. My answer is every single one of us, including Shekhar Suman, including Divya Shri, including myself, including all of you, we all are wearing jeans. I'm talking about genetic genes and not talking about denim jeans. Am I right? Each one of us is wearing 50% of our respective father's genes and 50% of our respective mother's genes. Each one of you, each one of us. Those are the genes that we need to look at a little bit more in detail, particularly you, the students of biosciences, life sciences. And at the same time, what Shekhar mentioned, everybody should know about it. One thing I've been telling wherever I go, if every single individual from the time they go into, let's say, middle school or even primary school, if there are two subjects I want them to really become familiar, like the way they become familiar with maths and language, those two subjects will be microbiology and genetics. If they become familiar with that right from that early age, I'm sure our country will be much more healthy, much more clean, and we will be able to respect every single living organism on this earth if you understand microbiology, virology, and genetics. And I'm sure some of you are into that too. So at the end of my presentation, you will see that it is not the denim genes that will have a major impact on your lives. It is actually the genetic genes that is the supreme commanding blueprint that we all carry that will have an effect on our lives in multiple ways. Okay, so my discussion today is going to be on a bit of both. So bit on careers as well as the marriages itself. Okay, so Shekhar, if you could change to my next slide, please. So let's get the talk going. So early time careers were very simple. They had to survive. We had tool makers about 2.5 million years ago, as I hear. And then there was a job like hunter, tool maker, farmer, builder, tailor, storyteller, artist, and what have you. You can stretch your imagination. What could be our ancestors thousands and thousands of years ago would have dwelled into in terms of their careers. But mainly, to put it in a simple word, they're probably very simple and very straightforward. Next slide, please. So if you move to the current generation, it's become complicated. Humans are known to make our lives very complicated. And we have thousands and thousands of different jobs. And sometimes you as graduates or non-graduates are in confusion which career I need to face. I need to progress as I progress in my life. It all depends on what is your internal interest is, what is your internal talent is. It could be something to do with agriculture. It could be something to do with health. It could be something to do with information technology, communications technology, administration, governance, politics, what have you. There are many different careers and side careers to each one of them as well. So no wonder we are confused. No wonder we want to talk about what career that I want to choose. Whereas an early man did not have that sort of a confusion. There was a need, and he went to do that hunting job or a farmer's job. So that was the one that they had, which we don't have. Now this slide is just one snapshot of different kinds of jobs available. There are many more jobs of such kind or a different kind, and mainly aimed at graduates. My next slide, please, shows some of you, may have not had the opportunity to complete your graduation for whatever reasons, personal reasons, family reasons, or whatever reasons. I want to mention to you not to lose heart in that. There are many other kinds of jobs as well. Here is a snapshot what I got from Google: 10 best jobs without a 4-year college degree course. It could be a technical assistant, and don't take the word technical very loosely. Technical assistants play a very significant role in every aspect of life, particularly now that we are facing the corona crisis. Okay, there are many different kinds of jobs that are available. But what will drive you towards that? That would be your package, the package that you're carrying. When I say package, the internal mindset, your observations that you would have made from your childhood, whether you're growing up in a village, a rural area, or an urban area, or wherever, right? And what is your mindset of that? And then how that mindset will lead to a designing of or steering of your career, and hopefully that steering will lead you to a job that you would be very happy with. Okay, along with will come money, salary, and all of that, and hopefully you'll be happy with. But what I want to leave you from this slide is that please take forward your internal desire. Every one of us is made in a different way. We like some things and other people like other things. You have to recognize that. Someone may be inclined to go into a career of music, or career of sports, or career of politics, or career of human resources or agriculture, whatever it is. You need to recognize that. People around you need to recognize that and help you to steer forward in that direction. So that's the beauty of discovering yourself. My next slide, please. So we discussed careers in a very brief way. Let's talk about marriages. I've always wondered, how did the institution of marriages come into existence? How did our gods, choose their respective spouses, respective partners? They didn't have Shadi.com or Bharat Matrimony or whatever .coms that we have now, which has got so divided and subdivided. We have .coms based on castes as well, subcastes as well. So we've made it so confusing. Whereas what happened around that time, during historic and prehistoric times? Maybe during the marriage of gods, maybe Naradamuni.com was there. Maybe Naradamuni played that role, going from one place to another place? I don't know. We don't know that. Okay, but marriages did happen, as we've known about from Mahabharata, Ramayana, and many other epics, right? Next slide, please. So, likewise, there were marriages of the royalty. They were married for love, for power, to merge the two kingdoms, or maybe something else that has happened. You can see the marriage of our Mysore, the latest Mysore Maharaja Yaduvir, and also you see the marriage of Prince Charles and Princess Diane. Unfortunately, they didn't work out. But below that, you also see marriages of many commoners. Okay, and those reasons for marriages of commoners could be arranged marriages, could be match fixing. When I say match fixing, I don't mean the cricket sports type of match fixing. It's more of a match fixing of whether this boy suits this girl, this girl suits this boy, and so on and so on. And there are many mass marriages of happening at the lower level because they cannot afford to have a grand marriage. But marriages nevertheless are happening. Next slide, please. And likewise, we have seen marriages of many celebrities and many powerful men, the epic weddings of Moses or Napoleon, or a very powerful man, Hitler, or a comedian like Charlie Chaplin, or coming into our current times, the very rich, like the film actress. Previous slide, please. Shaker, can I go? Yeah, the very rich, that you recognize here. If you recognize some of these people, please do type them in so that I know that you all know who I'm talking about. It could be Virat Kohli and Anushka Sharma. It could be Saina Nehwal and her partner. It could be Priyanka Chopra and Nick Jonas, or Deepika Padukone and Ranveer Singh. They all have got married. But at the bottom of the slide, I have a circle. That's the very poor, people who are also getting married. Now, where in these marriages is genetics playing a role? My next slide, please. So, do we consider marriages are happening, but do we consider genetics at all? Not really. Typically, falling in love is natural. You would have seen the famous photograph that went viral on the top left, where is this young, beautiful girl winking at someone. And if a boy faces that sort of a wink, how could you not melt? You would have fallen for her. Doesn't matter what. But it's not as simple as that. Once he gets attracted, then people around him or he himself around him, they look into other things as well. And this is where a lot of the sciences that we study fall into place. It could be morphology. We look at each other. Doesn't matter what you say. We look at each other. How you have a specific attraction towards a particular kind. It could be a phenotype. Phenotype, you've heard the genetic term phenotype, which is our outward appearance, outward performance. That's phenotype. Then that's going well. Then you go to taxonomy. In India, taxonomy is very complicated. We look at which religion, which look at which caste, which subcaste, which gotra, which nakshatra, all of that. That's a beautiful taxonomical classification that we have in India, which I don't think any other country has. If that is going well, then you look at socio-economic status. Oh, does this potential partner of mine fit into the social economic status of my current standing? If that's going well, it leads to chemistry, right? Another major science. Chemistry going well, then we get married, and then it goes into a couple of years, or maybe the same year, you go into reproductive biology and embryology. Okay, another branch of science. And then after several years of marriage, the issues come up, challenges come up within the family, between husband and wife, and we go through what I call physics, which is we experiment the three laws of Newton. If any of you are familiar with the laws of Newton, please write that in your chat box. I really want Shaker to recognize, those students who have written the three laws of Newton. Okay, and then if they've recognized that, maybe you could honor them apart from your e-certificate, maybe something else, because physics is so important, like chemistry. Anyway, we go through physics, then several years in our life, we go through psychology, because a lot of family pressures from children, pressures from relatives, pressures from society, pressures from diseases, pressures from lack of food, whatever it is. We really need to keep our mind in a psychologically balanced manner. Then we grow into old age, that becomes science of geriatrics. Right now, geriatrics is something that we all have to put up with, because the longevity is increasing. So we are facing certain diseases that India had not heard of. It could be Parkinson's, it could be Alzheimer's, it could be other kinds of rheumatisms, and so on and so on. So we go through all that. So my question to all of us, if you look at the bottom right slide, if you could move my screen to the other side, Shaker, where where do genes where do genes play a role? Where does genetics come into this whole thing? Why have we not considered genetics while we have considered so many different branches of science? So far, we've been only looking at the outward drama. There is a drama happening. We're only looking at the outward drama. What about the inside drama? That's where my point is. Next slide, please. So in my next slide, what I've shown is the current generation. Do they look at genes? Do they consider genetics? Okay, right now with so many shadi.com type of websites available, what typically happens is a boy or a girl who likes to find a partner puts their profile. It's like a resume. It's like a curriculum vitae. But mainly they talk about their name, their height and weight, and their complexion. We still play a lot of importance the color of the skin, which language we speak. Our family history, in brief, really just parents, nothing much more than that. My interests, my current, their current job interests, their current Devian put salaries and things like that. All of this is fine. This is still exteriors. If you can press just once more, Shaker, please. All of us only look at the exteriors, but we don't look into our interiors. Come on, guys. Let's not be naughty. I don't mind those sort of interiors. I mean the real interiors. I mean genetics. Who looks at genetics while we are trying to match each other? Technology has developed so advanced. Technology has become so advanced. We look at so many other things, but somehow we continue to ignore genetics. My next slide, please. Well, can you go back to the previous slide once more? I missed something. So we look at, not much into genetics. And then next thing you know, we got married, something happens, dandana happens, and then next thing you know, a miracle happens. Next slide. Okay? Children are born just like that. Totally oblivious to out of the womb thinking, convert out of the box thinking to out of the womb thinking. Isn't it magic that we get a lot of us are born normally like these children? Beautiful looking, smiling, bright, shiny children. It's magic, right? Now, if you press once more, Shaker, so of course we want all of them to grow healthy and lead a normal life. Press once more, but unfortunately, there are so many diseases that come and affect us. It could be communicable diseases or non-communicable diseases. On the right side, there is a graph, there's a circle, which shows the breakdown of different kinds of communicable diseases, and the light blue one towards the bottom right is the non-communicable diseases. We are faced with things like blood pressure, cancer, diabetes, arthritis, rheumatoid, Parkinson's, what have you. Plus on top of that, we also have infectious diseases, right? Now, until recently, until Corona came by, I was not worried about any of these diseases, because they could, by managing your lifestyle and by managing health and hygiene, public health, we could manage all these diseases, whether it's communicable or not communicable. If you can just press once more, Shaker, please. So I was not too worried about that. Okay, whereas the class of, these are manageable. Maybe even Corona, unfortunately, we were not prepared well enough to face Corona. That's why the whole nation, maybe the whole world is in crisis. Maybe we can learn lessons from this amazing, lesson that is being given by nature, to see how we can prevent such communicable diseases becoming, from endemics to epidemics to pandemics and all that. So this is our fault. This is not the fault of anyone else. Okay, maybe we should be better prepared. My next slide, please. But the diseases that I'm most really worried about is the class of diseases called genetic disorders, or the rare diseases, which actually every time I come across a child, it really brings tears to my eyes. right? Some of you may have, like Shaker mentioned, one of the friends that he knows, that person has children, but the children cannot see because of some genetic disorder. There are, guys, there are more than 350 million people worldwide having a rare disease of one kind or another. There are 7,000 different kinds of rare diseases. Somebody said that if you put all 350 million people affected from rare diseases in one place, they could be the second, maybe the third or the fourth largest country in the world. That's the number of people who have been affected by rare diseases. There are 7,000 different types, like I said. And 80% of these are caused by faulty genes. Sometimes it's recognized at the time of birth or recognized much, much later, generally much later. It may take 5 years, it may take 7 years to diagnose a rare disease. We don't have technologies that can, not enough technologies, not information available to have every child tested, at the time of pregnancy or just immediately after pregnancy. Unfortunately, children account for 50% of these rare diseases. Children, you may have come across some of these children, your friends, your extended families, and so on. The other bad news is that 95% of the 7,000 diseases do not have an FDA-approved cure. In other words, only 5% have got cure. And even that is difficult, and I will tell you why it's so difficult. Next slide, please. Now, this is something that happens. You may have come across many children paralyzed because of certain, not necessarily accidents, but more because of genetic disorders. This is what I call skewed or unpreferred gene mixing that would happen. Now, children with genetic disorders are born for no fault of theirs. And some of these children can somehow manage with the help of their family. They've got wheelchairs, they've got other devices that can help them go around. If you press once more, Shaker, what about children like this? They're born for no fault of theirs. They didn't ask for it to be brought into the society looking like that. Who cares for these children apart from their own parents? And sometimes even their own parents may not care. For no fault of the children, and many, many times for no fault of their parents. Their parents didn't know that they will have a child. Everybody prays for a healthy child, but there you go, they have a child that would look like something like this because of some genetic disorder. So how could this happen? What is the drama that I keep talking about of genetics that gives healthy children to some people and not so healthy children, deformed children to some of those poor, unfortunate families? That's what I want to discuss a little bit more about. Next slide, please. So let's talk about the drama here, the class of genes. So when two people decide to have a child, have children, the male both are diploids. Father and mother are diploids. There is 2n in terms of chromosome number, which is 46 chromosomes in each of them. And the male produces sperms, which is called gametes, which have 23 chromosomes, 22 plus 1 sex chromosome. And the female produces eggs, again 20 chromosomes, 22 autosomes plus 1 X chromosome, where the male has a Y chromosome. Now, the male gamete and the female egg, the sperm and the egg get together, and the fertilization happens. Next thing you know, a zygote is being developed, which is now coming from a haploid end from father, haploid end from mother, come together to form a diploid, which is 2n. Now, this 2n zygote is implanted in the inside wall of the uterus of the mother, what I call as a heavenly home, the heavenly box where things happen, right? While the zygote is being developed, genetic recombination is happening because the chromosomes from the father and chromosomes from the mother are pairing with each other in the homologous region. While they're pairing, recombination happens, genetic material gets exchanged. While this exchange is happening, all we are praying for is invoking, doesn't matter which God that you want to invoke, everybody invokes for a very healthy child. And that's what we want to have. Okay, is that really happening? So how are these genes playing in a healthy child as opposed to genes playing this drama in a child that cannot be healthy? If I can go to the next slide, please. So in my next slide, it gives you a list of things, that happens within the womb, within the zygote, as is becoming an embryo. There's interaction among genes, between genes and the environment, between chromosomes. I said 23 from the male gamete and 23 from the female gamete, sperm and egg. And there are approximately 24,000 protein encoding genes in humans, with the potential of each gene, that's about, let's say, 3 base, 3 kb DNA bases, being correct or incorrect at the time of birth or later in life, right? There's also the role of positioning of these genes, what we call as the loci, gene loci. It could be homozygous pairing, it could be heterozygous pairing. And then underlying all of this is the mechanism of genetic inheritance and sustenance. You would have learned about genetic inheritance and sustenance from your biology book on genetics about Mendelian laws. Apart from this, there is a role of mitochondria playing a role. Mitochondrial genes play with nuclear genes within mitochondria or inside the cytoplasm. And then on top of all of that, there's environmental factors influencing all of these about interactions. And that we call epigenetics. We can read about epigenetics, or we can come back and talk about epigenetics another time. And then, as you all would have heard by now, each of our bodies hosts 100 trillion microorganisms, in case you didn't know that. So we are not alone. Please don't think that your body is made up of only your cells. There are billions and billions and maybe trillions of bacteria, right, that are within your body that is playing a role in one way or the other. So that's something that you need to read about. So microbiome is the name of the topic. So all these things are happening during this interaction or during this drama of genetics that I've coined this slide. Next slide, please. So just a refreshing of your knowledge. The human body is very complex. Let's go to a single cell right in the middle, one with the purple. You've got nucleus, you've got chromosomes, you've got mitochondria, you've got Golgi bodies, you've got vacuoles, so on and so on. On the top right corner, we've got 23 chromosomes, 22 plus either an X chromosome in a baby, in a girl baby, or a Y chromosome in a boy baby. Now, many times, many people who don't know genetics, particularly the older women, maybe men also, I think, in rural areas, who don't know how babies are born, how these chromosomes are exchanged, unfortunately, they blame the daughter-in-law if she doesn't conceive a male child. So it's not the fault of the daughter-in-law. It's not the fault of the girl. Is the guy, is their son who has to give the Y chromosome to the zygote. But if he keeps giving X chromosome, of course we'll have this beautiful girl, beautiful babies, right? So there's no point. They should know that. They should know the mechanism of inheritance. Girl babies are great, right? But if there is no boy baby coming in, it's not the fault of the lady. It's the fault of the guy. It's the fault of the husband. This is a basic information that many of people in certain remote areas don't necessarily comprehend. This is something that I would like you to take forward to the society. Okay, on the bottom right, I've shown you a typical chromosome 17, I think. Okay, there are short arm and long arm separated by centromere. It just so happens that on the short arm, there is a gene called P53. I'm just giving you a little bit of how these genes are arranged and so on. Okay, this is a diagrammatic sketch. P53 is a tumor suppressor gene. Well, cancer can happen in multiple different ways. One of the things is that certain genes get modified because of exposure to toxic chemicals or toxic hazards like radiation and so on. And they mutate in such a way that the cell cycle gets out of control and cells begin to grow in a haphazard manner, in an uncontrolled manner, okay, and then becomes a tumor. Now, this P53 gene that is mapped on the short arm of the chromosome, that's role is to make sure that such genes are suppressed, or thus proteins are not functional. So if there is a mutation in P53 itself, of course, the cancer can grow. So I'm saying this is the role of a gene. That's how other genes play a role in terms of getting a well programmed child, boy or a girl, or a child which, for unfortunate reasons, may have some genetic deformation leading to a child that with a rare disease. Next slide, please. In my next slide, what I've shown is that how can these things happen? Sheikh, if you can move away my the chat thing, my photo, I want to bring the attention to how the variations can happen. Right on the top left, if you compare yourself to the person next to you, wherever you may be, right? If there is a person next to you or outside, you both are 99.9% same. Does it surprise you? Our person next to me is 99.9% similar. It's only 0.1% that makes us different from each other. That's how close we are. Although our performance, our phenotype may be so different, it's only 0.1%, as the geneticists say, that makes a difference, gives a different look to each one of us. Now, on the top right side, just like in a book, you will find typos, you'll find spelling mistakes or different ways of spelling of the same word can happen in the human genome sequence as well. On the bottom left, you have what we call polymorphism, or SNP, single nucleotide polymorphism. It so happens that if 94% of the population has got, let's say, one base, okay, at a particular position, the remaining 6% of the people have a different base in that particular position, then there is a difference in that nucleotide reading in that genome sequence. Now, many times, that difference in those 6% people may be very silent. Nothing may happen. Everything is fine. It's just one base difference. For example, the word color can be spelled in two different ways, with you or without you. A center can be spelled in different ways. These are different spellings, but the same meaning. Likewise, there could be a different spelling in the genome, but nothing really happens. But there is also what we call as a drastic change, where a single base can change to something totally different and manifest into a different amino acid, into a different protein, and that can have a drastic effect as well. For example, art versus act, post versus pest, happy versus nappy. I'm just giving you simple analogies here. So such changes can happen. That's how people have different polymorphic changes. On the bottom right, what we call as mutation. Mutation is something where 99.9% of the people have one kind of base, one kind of change in a given position of the gene, whereas the remaining 0.1% have got a different one, then it is a mutation. Again, there are different kinds of mutations. Some mutations may not play a huge role, whereas other mutations can play a devastating role. So if such mutations happen in a developing embryo or in a developing zygote at the time of recombination, then it may lead to a gene that may not have a drastic effect, or unfortunately, it may lead to a gene and a protein that may have a very drastic effect. This is the basis of something going wrong during recombination in that heavenly womb where the zygote is being developed into embryo and embryo into fetus. Next slide, please. So technologies have developed, have come about in a very rapid manner from 40s, 50s onwards. There have been three revolutions that you would have read about. There is a revolution of molecular biology from, let's say, about mid 60s to which keeps going, and the height of that was 80s and 90s, right? And then that overlapped with genomic revolution because of the advances in technology and computer technologies and so on, sequencing technology, computer technology. We have genomics revolution, where you can sequence a genome very, very rapidly, very correctly, and with less expense compared to the time the first human genome sequence was released. Right? That's a genomics revolution, going with the molecular biology revolution. But with so much of information coming from other fields, whether it's physics, chemistry, all different subjects of life sciences, now there's a third revolution, what we call convergence revolution. How this knowledge, how this information have to come together from all these fields into one bucket, and how people can look at that from multiple angles, from multiple dimensions to come up with an answer or answers to the problems that we continue to have from the past, or the new problems that are arising now, like the COVID-19. That's a new problem. So how can all these people come together? How can all these technologies can come together, right? In the area of cancer, what we call pharmacogenomics, right? Where if you know an individual's genome, these technologies can come and design a medication, okay, that is specifically suitable for that particular individual. So that's the advances of technology. And because of such advances, now we can take it to human biology, human reproductive biology as well, and see whether the children who are going to be born will be healthy or not healthy. Next slide, please. So let's go back to the art and the act of baby making, right? So I mentioned a mother through meiosis produces egg, okay, with 23 chromosomes. A father through meiosis produces sperms, and the sperms are in competition, like in a 100-kilometer dash, and the successful sperm penetrates the egg, and depends on what that particular sperm is carrying, right? As a gamete, right? It may be carrying an X chromosome from the father. It may be carrying a Y chromosome from the father. Whereas the egg from the woman, from the mother, is always carrying one of the two X chromosomes. So it combines in the zygote, and then that develops into an embryo, right, of 23 pairs, which is 46 chromosomes. Now, during this time, as I mentioned before, there is gene matching, there's complementation, there is dominance, there is codominance, and there is recessive mutations. These recessive mutations is something that we need to be worried about. Many of the recessive mutations may go unnoticed, but there are certain recessive mutations when they come together. For example, if a recessive mutation is coming, a gene is coming from a mother, and a similar recessive mutation gene is coming from father, if they come together, it becomes homozygous for that recessive mutation, and certain genetic disorder is expressed. Whereas if a non-recessive mutation gene is coming from one parent and the recessive mutation is coming from other parent, then the dominant one will suppress the recessive one, and the child will look normal, although it's carrying a copy of the recessive mutation. So this is how chromosomes, pair with each other, recombination happens, and through out of luck, embryos get certain package or certain mix of genes. And we all hope that that mix of genes will produce us a healthy child. Next slide, please. So let me give you one example of inheritance of hemophilia, right? Hemophilia is a blood disorder, is a clotting disorder, because of lack of certain clotting factors, because genes have got mutated. So those proteins which play a role in clotting of the blood, you may have noticed when you get a cut, within a few minutes, maybe a few seconds, your blood clots, otherwise you'll be continuously bleeding. That's because a protein from a gene in your genome is playing a role in making sure that blood is not leaked anymore by clotting it, right? But whereas some people, unfortunately, have got a mutated version of this gene, so that's called hemophilia, and unfortunately, those children do not have a functional clotting protein. So here is a mother, okay? She's had one child, which is hemophilic, right? She didn't know, but she had one child. Now she wants to have a second child. Now she's wondering, what will my second child be normal, or will my second child be like the first child? For this, we've got to know genetics. And this is where you, the students of life sciences, students of genetics, can play a huge role once you understand the concepts of genetics, concepts of inheritance, concepts of gene mixing, and so on and so on. If you can press the slide once more, Shekhar, please. So here is a family where the lady in the pink on the left side, okay, she's carrying a mutation in one of her X chromosomes. There are two X chromosomes. She's carrying a mutation for hemophilia. Okay, but she's not hemophilic because the dominant gene is keeping the recessive gene suppressed. Right now, she happens to marry a man who has hemophilia, which is on the X chromosome, not on the Y chromosome. Now they get married. They decide to have children. The way it happens is that if the X chromosome carrying the hemophilic mutation from the mother happens to come with the X chromosome carrying the hemophilic gene mutation from the father, then the child will be hemophilic, of course, because you have two X chromosomes, one from the mother, one from the father, both carrying alleles of the hemophilic gene mutation. Obviously, that child will be hemophilic, unfortunately. But if the child, that's the girl child, the very first child in the photograph. The second girl child, which is in pink, she carries, let's say, a good gene, a good X chromosome without the hemophilic mutation, and then gets an X chromosome from the father, which is carrying a hemophilic gene. It doesn't express, although she's carrying it, because the mother's gene is suppressing the father's gene, which is mutated, right? And likewise, similar thing happens in boys as well. Okay, if if the boy is carrying, they become normal because the X chromosome, if the X chromosome coming from the mother is normal, combining with Y chromosome, which doesn't carry gene, then the boy is normal. Whereas if the X chromosome coming from the mother is carrying hemophilic mutation, combines with the Y chromosome from the father, then that boy is going to be hemophilic. Okay, this is how genetics works. In my next slide, if you can press the slide once more, Shaker, you can see that in this case, the mother is normal mother. She's not carrying any hemophilic gene mutation. She still marries someone with hemophilic gene. And if you work it out, because there's only one X chromosome coming from the father, you will see that it doesn't matter which combination that gets inherited, all 4 children will be normal. The only difference is the boys will not be carrying that for the next generation, where the girls will be carrying that for the next generation. The girls in this generation are normal because the mother's chromosome is suppressing the father's chromosome, whereas the girls, when they have children in the next generation, the likelihood of that going as a recessive mutation is pretty much there. So this is genetics I'm talking about. So please read about this and please understand more. Next slide, please. Now, how do we know? And this is where your career is going to play an importance. Okay, there are many institutions around India, in Bangalore as well, which can carry out prenatal diagnosis. Okay, there's Bangalore Fetus Medical Center, okay, in Bangalore. If you can move the frame, my photo frame, Shaker, to the other end, there is the pregnant women can have a scan, okay, what we call mutual translucency scan, which scans for Down syndrome. Okay, they take the fluid from the back of the this is prenatal diagnosis. Okay, back of the child's baby's neck, or you can even have earlier screening, first trimester screening, tertiary level screening, chorionic villus sampling, amniocentesis. All such technologies available as long as the families are interested in getting themselves tested. If you get tested, you may be able to tell, particularly those families who may have had history in the past about a child being born, with a genetical disorder. Such technologies available now. Okay, there are, until now there were invasive technologies where you have to put a syringe inside the uterus of the mother, which is obviously painful, uncomfortable. Now there are non-invasive technologies as well, where it's something like a sonogram or what do you call the scanning. Okay, scanning of these things can happen to at least to provide some sort of a knowledge to the parents to make a decision. Next slide, please. Okay, so there is a center called Center for Human Genetics. This was started by Professor Sharath Chandra maybe about 20 years ago, with the help of Government of Karnataka, Government of India, and many other donors, institutions as well. Now they have some fantastic geneticists, clinical geneticists. Professor Sharath Chandra himself is a scientist geneticist. Dr. Meenakshi Bhatt in the center of the photograph. She's a clinical geneticist. She's a doctor, plus she's a geneticist. So I would like to recommend Biotecnika to invite her sometime to discuss more about this particular topic, because she's the one who is qualified to do many of these tests.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, and then there is Dr. Jairam Karandale, and then many other staff, which is listed on the right side in the middle in blue letters. Now, this is an old slide. They've carried out 20,000 patient families testing in 9 years. Okay, and it can go breakdown. And these are the sort of centers that need to be supported. We need to get more government funding. We need to get more private funding. We need to get more angel funding. Societal funding has to happen for such work to happen. Because unfortunately, many times these diseases hit with the very, very poor people. So what do? They have to depend on institutions like this to either diagnose early at the time of planning for a child, or maybe immediately afterwards, right? So they have got a huge database of phenotype, genotype photographs, DNA samples, and so on and so on. And that's where some of you interested in pursuing a course in genetics, cytogenetics, you can look up this institution as one of your target institutions for you to go get employed and really contribute to this wonderful field. Next slide, please. So they run a pediatric genetics fellowship course for the doctors. Many doctors are not aware of these things, right? And you don't blame them because they may not learn this in their medical degree courses. And in fact, many doctors come from other countries apparently to Center for Human Genetics to undergo this pediatric genetics fellowship course. This is done jointly between Center for Human Genetics in Electron City, Bangalore, and IGICH, Indira Gandhi Institution for Child Health. They have a center of excellence to host, to cater for, to care for children affected with rare diseases, and this sort of center must get expanded with more funding. Now, the course duration is for 1 year for pediatricians, okay, and there's 4 candidates per year. If any of you have doctors, in your families who are trying to get into this field, please let them know about something like this happening so that they can come and enroll into such a course, because this is very, very important. Now, if you're wondering where can you have clinical testing, when you actually reach a stage where you want to plan for a child and you want to make sure that your child comes out in a normal way, there are many, many clinical testing centers. A lot of them are in Bangalore, and hopefully there'll be some more coming up in other cities of Karnataka as well. There's Baptist hospitals, MS Ramaya Hospital, the Siddhartha Medical College, Tumkur, the Manipal Hospital, St. John's Medical College in Bangalore, and so on, where young couples can go get themselves tested. Next slide, please. So, it's all not bad news. There's good news as well. I told you about 5% of the people affected by genetic disorders, they have some treatment of the other, one treatment or the other, right? Here is one case where phenylketonuria. Phenylketonuria is because of one defective gene which does not metabolize phenylalanine into its resulting products, so which ends up in accumulation of phenylalanine, and that can be very, very dangerous to the child. Okay, so that child was born with a defective gene called PAH gene. Okay, because of that, so the child undergoes accumulation of phenylalanine, which results in metabolic disorders. And as simple as coming up with a nutrient product called it's called Balance from a company called Pristine, which provides nutrition without phenylalanine, is phenylalanine-free diet. Just by using such kind of dietary supplements, the child can become normal. Excuse me for a second, I'll just have a drink of water. Okay, now this product is produced in Bangalore. It's not too expensive. Okay, so as simple as by altering a diet of the child affected with phenylketonuria, the child will become normal. Next slide, please. So here is another disease called Gaucher disease, or GD. Now, imagine Bangalore as a city, or any other city that you may be coming from, already filled with garbage. If the garbage is not cleared out on a regular basis, imagine the amount of unhealthy conditions, unhealthy environment the city can project, which is already happening. Similar things happen in each of our cells. As you know, as you've studied in cell biology, each cell has a dumping body called vacuole, lysosomes, wherein many enzymes play a role in degrading the products into its constituents, which could be amino acids and so on, which gets recycled. Now, you need many enzymes in that vacuole, wherein the enzymes can actively degrade that. Unfortunately, some genes are mutated. One such gene is GBA1 gene. This GBA1 gene normally produces an enzyme called glucocerebrosidase. If the GBA1 gene is mutated, then you have a defective glucocerebrosidase. And if you look at the bottom photograph of the child, it comes up with an enlarged stomach. Unfortunately, many people who don't know about genetics, who don't know about mechanism of inheritance and genes and all that, they probably downgrade that child, saying that the child probably eats too much, that's why the stomach is bulging, and so on and so on. But they don't know that poor child is born with a genetic disorder, right? So again, there is a simple treatment available. A company called Genzyme, they have manufactured an enzyme using recombinant DNA technology, wherein this enzyme, when given to this child as a supplement, that can normalize the child's metabolism. Okay, you can see the top right photograph how the child has become normal. Only catching thing here is that Genzyme is a company in America, it operates in India, and it's a very, very expensive product. It costs something like 40 to 100 lakhs annually for a child to stay like that, to stay normal. Okay. Now, where do we bring that kind of money? Who has that kind of money? Imagine a family having a child like that, a poor family or a rich or even a middle class family. What will that family do? How will they get help? Now, Genzyme, out of their generosity, they've been taking care of what I heard was many, many children, but they cannot continue to take care of many, many children. So, can that enzyme be produced in India through startups, through other support systems, and that enzyme product is less expensive, so people can afford? Okay. Now, if you go to my next slide, I'll show you a photograph of a young boy all the way towards the left. He was diagnosed with Gaucher disease when he was about 3 or 4 years old, I think, or maybe 2 or 3 years, with a bulged stomach. Fortunately, he was diagnosed. It was Gaucher disease. Genzyme, I think, supplied that enzyme, and now he's completely normal. I've met this young man. He's a very smart-looking young man, very, very well-educated, a good sportsman, and a good speaker as well. And now he's like that. So what I'm saying is that not all diseases of the rare kind are untreatable. There are some that can be treated. For others, you need to do a lot more research. So this is the way to go forward if some of you are interested in pursuing this course and going to R&D institution like CHG or like IGICH and so on, where you can pursue studies to help a family or prevent a future family born with certain kinds of rare genetic disorders. Next slide, please. I just have a few more, then I will be ending. So here is a case of thalassemia. Thalassemia is a case where the red blood cells are not formed, the abnormal form of hemoglobin, and because of that, the patients born with thalassemia, which can be it can be a fatal disease if not diagnosed and monitored throughout the child's journey. Okay, there are blood transfusion has to happen every so often, and they depend on blood donation. If some of you have not donated blood, please go donate blood at the local Red Cross or TTK blood centers. It's extremely important. We need to accumulate as much blood as we can. Healthy people must go and donate your blood. Please do so. Because these people and many other people are dependent on blood coming from many, many people, other people like us in the society. Now, when they get blood transfusion, so they get some normal red blood cells, so their metabolism their activity is quite fine. But one side effect of this is that a lot of iron gets accumulated, which can again be very toxic. So now the same patients who get blood transfused, they also have to undergo an iron chelation therapy where iron gets sucked out. I'm just telling you the kind of problems some children who are born for no fault of theirs have to undergo because of these rare genetic disorders. Next slide, please. Okay, so how is this all happening? Apparently, it's all happening more and more so in poorer countries, particularly in India, and in that particular South India, right? This is because of consanguinity. This is because of inbreeding in general, which promotes genetic disorders. The more you marry within your family circles, the chances are higher for the two recessive genes to come together, and that way your child will be born with the probability of a child being born with a recessive disorder is much, much higher. So how do we avoid that? That can be avoided through education, through information sharing, and through convincing either by the doctors or the genetic counselors and scientists who can at least introduce them to the topic and let them go to professionals for them to get a good counseling session from those professionals. Next slide. Yeah. So now my question to you all, young people, is that the new generation, while we display a lot of our phenotypic characteristics, our professional stance, and all of that, will we ever reach a stage in our lives, maybe next year, maybe 5 years from now, 10 years from now, where there will be genome matching? Will this genome matching play a superior role in all the other kinds of matching that we seem to rely on, which could be like, like Gotra, Kundali matching, right? I'm not saying Kundali matching is very, very important. I think our ancestors have laid down some very good principles, which still works. It doesn't work in some cases, but it still works. They have some good reasons for that. I'm not discarding that. On top of that, can there be a genome matching to ensure that there are less and less children born with genetic disorders, because it's become very, very difficult for the state to support or for the parents to support. We don't want to be caught in a situation where we don't know what to do with the children that are being born like that. So far, it's exteriors that people are focusing. I'm asking, how about focusing on the real interiors? When I said the real interiors, I mean the genetics of each one of us. Next slide, please. Okay, so I'm although I'm in the area of biotechnology, having worked in multiple fields, microbiology, microbial genetics, protein trafficking, a little bit of virology, a little bit of agriculture biotechnology, vaccines, and so on and so on. This is one topic that is of major interest to me. I read about it as much as possible. I try to send out the information through a newspaper media or some other social media, and I go give talks in many institutions. Particularly, I look forward to giving talks in northern Karnataka and maybe other parts of India, because that's where a lot of these diseases are happening, because families don't know about these sort of information that they require for them to really, while they're planning to have a child, what is it they should be really thinking about. Next slide. So awareness is absolutely important. That's why each one of you to study more, to read more, get to understand it better than what I've been trying to influence you with my presentation. There is a lot of information available. A lot of parents of these children have formed societies because they need help. There are many, many different societies. Either they're all together, as well as each disease, each parents of who may have a child of a particular disease, they may have their own societies, so that people they need to feel that they're not by themselves. There are other people who are also have such situations. So how can we come together to really help out the cause? Okay, so public awareness is absolutely important. I would like to request you all to please read more about it and take it to the society. Next slide, please. So, having said this, I don't want any of you to feel fearful when you're falling in love or when you're trying to find a match for yourself. Please don't be fearful. Falling in love is one of the best things that can happen, whether it happens before marriage or after marriage, right? It feels good. But it's good to be aware that something like this can happen. If something like this can happen, can parents be prepared? Can the society be prepared? As you all know, nobody is perfect until you actually fall in love with them. Once you fall in love with them, none of these things matter. I've got a beautiful love story to tell you about, but I don't think I'll tell you that now. I can give you a link for that love story. How a young lady stuck by his boyfriend, who was only 20 years. He got diagnosed with a rare disease. Somehow he managed to survive, but the girl didn't leave him until he really got better. They got married and they got a child now, a beautiful child. So that's what I mean. Nobody's perfect until you fall in love with them. Okay, so it's good to be aware. So to summarize my talk, I have it in my next slide. Is careers versus marriages. Okay, what I've learned from got more experience than me, both in careers as well as the marriages, is right. Love your spouse more than you love your career, because or your hobbies and money, because that other stuff can't love you back, whereas your family can love you back, right? And another saying is that marriage itself is a career which brings about more benefits than many others. Simone de Beauvoir, okay, a French person. Marriage is a career which brings about more benefits than many others. You should focus on careers, but don't think that's the only career that you have to be focusing on. You have to focus also on a bigger career, which is marriage. Marriage itself is a career. So with your permission, I came up with my own quote. Okay, maybe I'll put my name if Shaker is okay with that, right? My own quote is that a career, my summary, a career, irrespective a job it can fetch you, is only a step along the way to marriage, which is a bigger career, because the challenges and benefits are much, much larger. Okay, next slide, please. My next slide is the last slide. where I just want to tell you all that healthy children, healthy animals will lead to healthy environment, and the other way around as well. And if we can follow all of this, I'm sure India will be a very good Mahabharat. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sheikh.
Thank you so much for your time and talk. It was really insightful. So, everybody, how was the webinar so far? Quickly in chat, can we see your responses? Okay. All right. So now is the time for the feedback form and the surprise gift. We'll be putting it in the link, the chat box. Now, in the meanwhile, if you have any questions for Jagdish sir, you can put it in the chat box. Put a Q and then the question so that we know it's a question. And then I'll display it on the screen, and then you will be in a position to listen to the answers. Okay? Quickly, everybody. If you have any questions, I'll be okay. There's a lot of chats coming in. It's very difficult. Let's wait for
a question.
Yeah.
Sure.
So, okay, everybody loved it. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Okay. All right. So
there's a question coming.
Getting...
How can we prevent something? There was one question.
Yes. So
there are two more questions.
So there's a question which I'm showing on the screen right now. So that's how can we become a genetic counselor? And that's a question from Adini, I guess, if I can read it correctly. Yeah. So,
should I answer that?
Yeah.
Shekhar?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, there are courses available for genetic counseling. You just have to Google and then find out places where they do. You've got to have some background in genetics itself, I guess, and then just general knowledge about the society and challenges like what I discussed today. And if you show real interest, I'm sure there will be courses for you to learn more about genetic counseling. If Shekhar, please share my WhatsApp link or my email link to any of them, so that I can put them in touch with the real counselors who will be able to guide them along if they. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so we have our next question, and it's a very interesting question. Can the disorder be treated when the baby is still in the womb?
No, that's a very important question. So gene therapy is something that is being looked at. Okay, and that's a highly complex one and a highly ethical one. Gene therapy is yet to be approved in India because of various other issues as well. So there are ICMR has released a series of guidelines where one can look into considering whether it can be done or not. I'm not saying it's simple. I'm not saying it's possible, but technologies are available to see if it is possible at all. So that's something that I would like that person who questioned to know, to discover more about, to read more about.
Okay, so the next question is from Srividya, and she asks, how much pedigree analysis is accurate?
As long as you have enough data from the families from the past, if they have, like many of the royal families apparently have kept good data, and if they have analyzed the progeny from over various generations, one can come to a conclusion, oh, this is 100% or this is less than 100%. It all depends on the kind of data that they have. Hopefully, the new technologies that we have and new families or people now can get into a situation where they can start preserving data for their benefit as well as benefit of their future generations.
All right, so that answers your question, Srividya. Let's look for another good question. So we have a question. Why people say one should not marry in close relations. What's the scientific reason? I mean, okay. I think you are the best
So that
person to
was
reply.
that was the theme of the whole talk itself. It just so happens that we come from a similar genetic lineage, right? If I marry my mother's brother's daughter or my mother's sister's daughter, which doesn't happen in India, which happens elsewhere, then the probability of the recessive genes coming from her with me, if I'm carrying those recessive genes, coming together is very, very high. And if we decide to have a child, the probability of that child inheriting that pair of recessive genes is very, very high. As opposed to me marrying someone from from a distance, from far away, with no relation to us, the probability of that girl carrying a similar mutated gene is very low. Of course, now if my family had, let's say, if I have a history in my family of certain kind of genetic disorder, if I have diagnosed it properly, and then if I'm carrying something like that, if I want to marry, all else is okay, carrying something like that without showing any symptoms. If I want to marry a girl, I want to make sure that, look, I'm carrying this. I want to know whether you're carrying it or not. If you're carrying, should we really consider getting married and having a child, or should we consider something else? So it's very important that we try and marry. I'm not saying all marriages that have happened within the family have gone wrong. I know many of them were doing really well, fantastically well, because within family marriages have got many other advantages, okay, social and economic advantages, but may not have genetic advantages. Although many people have been born with good genetics, but what I
Right.
can say is that one family with a child that is born with a genetic disorder, what do you do with that kind of family? So it's better to avoid that, is my suggestion.
Okay, so our next question is from Rajshri, and she's asking about the blood group and RH factors in marriage, how important they are, I guess. That's her question. Is that right, Rajshri? Yeah.
I think it is important. I've not done too much of investigation on that. It's something that I need to be reading a little bit more. I think blood groups, certain blood groups, when they come together, it can lead to a certain kind of metabolic disorder. So we need to be matching that as well, I think. But I need to be. I won't attempt answering this question in a comprehensive manner because I need to read about it myself.
Okay.
It's a
So
good question.
quickly, we have the next question, which is which genetic tests are important to do prior to getting married?
Which, I'm sorry, could you repeat the question, Shekhar, please?
Which genetic tests are important to do prior to getting married?
Uh, uh, it could. There are many different tests available. It could be. It depends on what you think is your at risk. For example, it's always important to get women tested for breast cancer. Right now, tests are available for that. It could be presence of a mutated BRCA1 gene, BRCA2 gene, and so on. Likewise, if there is a risk of something like that in your family, it's a good idea to have it tested. And there are many such, again, I'm not saying tests are available for all these different kinds of genetic disorders, but there are many tests available for diagnosing the various kinds of different kinds of genetic disorders.
All right. So we have a lot of questions coming in. I think it will be very difficult to handle all of them. So it's one
Yeah.
question. Is genetic counseling done in India, and is it like the ethical to kill a fetus if diagnosed with genetic disorder? So that's an ethical question.
This ethical question that reminds me of something that I had highlighted in one of the slides,
Right.
where I had listed the various kinds of diagnosis that's available. So prenatal testing for gender identification is illegal. Please note that. Uh, that's something that is not done. It should not be done. While you can have your fetus or your embryo tested for various other kinds of things, but not for gender testing.
Okay. So
So,
quickly, guys, I
so
can see.
Shekhar,
Yeah,
what I want to mention is that I think you really must invite one or two people from the Center for Human Genetics, and
right,
like Dr. Meenakshi Bhatt, like Dr. Jaram Karendle. I mean, there are amazing
right.
questions coming up, and there are many, many questions which I'm not in a position
Yes,
to answer. I'm sorry about
yes.
that. So,
So,
but this is just a teaser. I'm only
yeah,
teasing people to get into this field, and
right.
hopefully you will connect to CHG and then get Dr. Meenakshi Bhatt into this
Yeah, in
webinar.
fact, we tried inviting them into this webinar, but they were busy. So maybe in the next one, we would invite them certainly. Okay. So everybody, I can see a lot of questions coming in, but we have really limited time. Okay. So we'll just take last three questions. Okay. We'll randomly choose. And if anyone else has more questions, you know where to ask. Come to Biotecnika Connect. I'll send you that link. You can ask there, and Jagdish sir will be there, and you can interact with him later after this webinar. I hope that works for everybody. Okay, so last three questions, guys. So let me quickly choose. So I'm going to take one from Purna. Okay, Purna says, why is the treatment so complicated and costly?
Because the technology is expensive. It's a capital intensive technology, and not that many clinics are around, not that many specialists are around. So hopefully when we reach a stage where there is more simpler diagnosis types of tests available and more experts are available, I'm sure the cost will come
Right.
down. Again, this is something that the government can also get in to subsidize those charges.
Of course. Okay. Another question from Pooja. If a person is married with other caste, does it also affect the genetics of child? Other caste marriage also affects the genetics. That's a question.
Well, the caste implication itself not related directly to
Right.
genes, I feel. Whether you pray to which god that you're praying, I don't think that will come into the child unless the child is being grown in an environment where they pray for a particular god, right? So
Right.
likewise, a child is born with no package, with no history. A child is born into the environment which actually designs the growing of that particular child.
Okay. So there's the next question. This is the last question we're taking for today. That's from Aritri. I guess it's a continuation question to the previous question. What she's asking is it possible to have some alternatives to this technology which is less accessible and more, less expensive and more accessible? I'm sorry. Okay, that's a question.
Yes, scientists and technologists are continuously work on innovation to come up with technologies that are less expensive and easily accessible across the nation, across in remote areas. We need to come up with technologies that can go into primary healthcare centers of every rural gram panchayat or a primary healthcare center in every rural gram panchayat, so that there, and then we also need doctors there to be trained in diagnosing cases like that. So until that happens, there will still be a lot of births of children who carry rare genetic disorders.
Okay, so with this, we come to the end of the webinar. I hope all of you have got the link for the feedback. Okay, now I would like to thank Dr. Jagdish Mittur for your precious time today. And I also would like to thank all of you for attending this session. Very interesting thoughts shared by Jagdish sir, and a very vibrant audience we had this morning. Now, before I conclude, I wanted to tell you one very interesting fact. Ask the mother of a rare genetic disease child. Ask her how she feels about her child. The feelings alone will tell you how desperate she is to spend as much as possible to save her child, to protect her from this rare genetic disorder. But as Sir said, 99% are not FDA approved. So there is very less treatments available. But India or the world today is sitting on a genetic catastrophe, a ticking time bomb, because we don't consider genes before getting married. We just look at the looks, we just look at how people look and how much money they have in the bank. We do not look at the other aspect, which is the internal genes, which we all are wearing, right? Like I said in the beginning, the genes which we have. So, my dear friends and colleagues and subscribers and fans of Biotecnika, with this webinar, I didn't want it to actually end it by saying, okay, this webinar ends. I want to start a revolution. I want to start a genetic revolution in the world where all of you become the harbingers of genetic technology, genetic counseling, genetic research. I want all of you to come together for this cause, where you make all your relatives, friends, family members aware of the rare disease and how it can have a bad impact on our children, our future generations. And also, you can do two things. The one is become a genetic counselor. The second is become a genetic editor. So how do you become a genetic editor? You become a genetic editor by learning new technologies like CRISPR, right? So one is like, okay, we have suppose coronavirus, so we don't know the treatment, so we are taking precautions. Genetic counseling is something like a precaution. Okay, so you counsel people so that they don't, end up having children who have rare diseases, and that's a huge burden on the parents, on the society. Of course, the children have not done any mistake, right? They're just born just like that. What is their mistake? So genetic counseling is a very good career which you can make. Okay, and of course, genetic editing is a very much upcoming field with CRISPR and other upcoming technologies. So that is the reason today, as a surprise gift, we are giving away. What you have to do is just fill the feedback form that will redirect you to the surprise gift, and that will be a 20% discount on any of our courses. So you can buy any of our courses today. Be a smart scientist, okay, and you should be able to grab those. Now, in addition to that, we will be sending one email which will have the link to join us on Biotecnika Connect, so that you can ask more questions to Dr. Jagdish Mittur, and of course to all the Biotecnika experts, and you will be in a position to interact better, learn more, because at the end of the day, learning is earning. Am I right, guys? Yeah, I think Dr. Jagdish has something to say. I'll quickly bring him in. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, so Shekhar, again, thank you so much. Just have one request I had during my talk. I had mentioned.
Okay.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Ahead. Yes.
Yeah, during my talk, I'd mentioned that to please, if you can, recognize in those thousands of chats that you are getting, someone who has put in, listed the Newton's laws. Please give that person or persons some extra recognition apart from the e-certificate. Okay, that's one. And then the second thing is, I really thank you very much. And I'm looking at the questions that that are flooding in. Amazing questions. I think a lot of people have got triggered to know more. And then my advice is, please also put a website address called Genetics Literacy Project, GLP, and that carries a lot of very interesting articles. And any disease that anyone is interested in, you just have to Google and you can learn a lot more about that. So please kindly share that information with all of them. And again, I thank you. I thank Divya. I thank Team Biotecnika. And more than anyone else, I thank the entire audience who took the time to log in and listen to me, and then
absolutely
the chat. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So thank you so much, everybody, for attending this webinar. And now that you know the tricks of the trade, you know the rules of the game, go ahead, pursue your career in genetics. It's a wonderful field. You will get to learn a lot. But one thing certainly, which Sir said, there is so much to learn out there, right? So thank you so much. We will end this webinar right here. And I have a small announcement to make. We are very soon coming up with another webinar, which will be on this Saturday. We are celebrating World Microbiome Day. So that will be on Saturday in the evening, 7:30. If you're free, please do come and join us, because we will be having 4 new experts also coming in. You know, microbiome, it's a very interesting topic. So we are celebrating World Microbiome Day. You can join us there. Very soon on Biotecnika, you will see the announcement for that. Okay. Thank you so much, guys. It was wonderful interacting with all of you. See you soon in our next webinar on this Saturday, where we celebrate World Microbiome Day at 7:30 p.m. Thank you so much. Have a great day ahead. Bye-bye.